cloud. And I'm also gonna make, I think I'm gonna make you the host just so that you have full access of everything.
Okay. Perfect.
All right.
Yeah, sometimes the recording,
people.
huh?
Oh, I was just gonna say people had signed up. We had a good amount of people, so I don't know.
Yeah, let's give it a few minutes, and then if anything, we'll just we can do the
recording.
Recording.
Yeah. How are you?
Good. How about you?
Good. Yeah. Are you in the office or are you
nope, still at home,
working from home? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like nervous. I don't really want to go back.
I know.
It's I can't imagine, getting back to spending so much time just traveling and packing lunch, and
I know.
You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
It's definitely, I'm just so used to. When I first I worked out of my house from all the way until 2016.
Yeah.
So I was fine with it and liked it. But then once we had kids and I started hiring, my wife was like, "Get out of here."
Yeah.
So when I first got my office, it was definitely a big
change.
It was so I'm gonna have to like re-go through the pain of the again when I go back.
But is your cousin still working for you? Was it your cousin that like is in a different country?
Yeah.
Carl. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely more open to remote workers now than I was before this started.
Right. I think her name's Julie from the Cumming Center. She's an account there. She actually just joined the chamber for Cumming Center.
Oh, okay.
And she was like, "Oh, I saw that he was on your membership." I was like, "Yeah, Donato, like he's been a part of the chamber. He did our website for a while." She was like, "It's so nice to see like businesses in Beverly working in Lynn." And I was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Did you grow up in Lynn? Is that what I remember?"
Yeah, I grew up in Swampscott, but then I did live in Lynn for 5 years until we moved recently, like a year ago. Yeah.
Okay. Because she lives in Lynn now too, and so I said I think that's kind of why he had originally joined, because he was living in Lynn.
Yeah, well, I joined all the way back when I was living in Winthrop after I graduated from school. Yeah, and I joined the Lynn Chamber when I was living in Winthrop in like 2012. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
I used to love going to before I had kids, I used to go to everything. I used to go all the noontime networking and the after hours, and I was in like 4 different chambers and I would go to all the events, and then once I had kids, that kind of killed it all. My wife didn't really feel like waiting for me to come back from
like a business after
hours.
Like,
"Oh, I'm gonna go to after hours, have fun."
Yeah, especially after she's been home with the kids all day.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
we got Delia on, so we might as well.
Yeah.
And I guess if you wanted to, actually, it's probably recording automatically, or you can start recording, or I should record.
Yeah, I think it is already recording, so we're good. And we'll just cut out our conversation. But
am I the only one?
Yeah, you're the only one that seems to have shown up.
We have like
I'm
10
just here
people.
to take notes from my colleague.
Oh.
I don't do the.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, we had like 10 people sign up, and maybe everybody will come in as we start.
It's still worth doing the recording and brushing up on things. We got another one coming in, so
as I say, I don't do our website, but I told Jamie's not able to make it, so I told her I would.
Okay, hopefully we'll get you some good tips over the course of it. All right, so I'll share my screen, and then we'll just we'll get into the presentation. Let's see.
I'm going to put myself on.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today for the simple tips to improve your website instantly. My name is Donato D'Andrea. I'm the president and owner of Compete Now Web Design and online marketing. And that's my background. I've started the business in 2009. We've worked with across hundreds and hundreds of websites over the years. It's crazy to think how many we have done since we first started. And you know, we have a great passion for working with small businesses and nonprofits to improve their site. And when I created this presentation, I tried to think of it in terms of somebody either going into basically thinking about it. Maybe you don't need a whole new website. Maybe you're just trying to think of what you can do that's going to have the biggest impact on things immediately. So that's mostly what I tried to focus on for over the course of the presentation. So that's what we went in there. So before you go into any website redesign, completely new website creation, or just looking at your existing site and what you can do to improve it, you want to ask yourself some simple questions, very simple questions. What do you even want from your website? Who will be visiting your website? What do they want? What questions do they have? You know, what is your offer? And if you have Google Analytics, check in on that. Going in order to this, a lot of the times people think like, what do you want from your website? And that based on what you want will help guide what you need to do. If you want to get more leads from your website, from business that you wouldn't have got otherwise, that's going to be a completely different answer than if you're just trying to get leads from your site that are going to your site anyway. Say you're getting a lot of referral traffic from your site from either your email list or you just know you're getting good traffic, but you're not getting leads. Then you know you need to focus specifically on the website and what the issue is. If you want more leads from your site and you're getting no traffic, then you have two problems potentially to solve. So that's a big thing to think about before you go into it, because we're small businesses. We don't have unlimited budgets. So you really need to focus on prioritizing what you can be working on, because, you know, you could have somebody on staff, you know, constantly doing the website and still constantly doing marketing. But, you know, most small businesses don't. That's why they rely on agencies and other places like that for the work. You know, also thinking about what questions your audience has. When people come to your website, are there just a standard set of questions running through their head that they need to know before they're ever going to contact you? We usually check off the boxes for those questions for the very basic ones. Where are you located? What services do you offer? But aside from that, there might be other questions on top of that they have that they need to know the answers to before they're even going to entertain talking to you. So try to think about those questions and how you can handle answering those, and make sure that those are addressed on the website. That's another good thing just to think about going into your website. And if you can have some kind of an offer on the website, once somebody does feel like your company is potentially the right solution for them, what's the next step? What's the offer? Is it a free consultation? Is it a physical, actually like a coupon, or what is just any kind of thing that you say, okay, now you want to get started, here's something that we're offering you to start that process, or here is the next step. If it's not an offer, then just what should they do next, to make it very, very clear and prominent on your website so they can follow through on that. And if you have Google Analytics, checking in on how that goes all the way back to the beginning. Are you getting any traffic? Is it traffic that, if you're a local business, I always recommend taking a look at your traffic in Google Analytics. And if you really only service a specific area, try to see what your traffic looks like for your actual specific area, because you could be getting good traffic to your website. But if it's through blogging and other means, or however you're getting that traffic, and it's mostly traffic spread out across the country, it's not going to be any traffic that's ever going to lead to business leads for you if you can't service them. So when you go into Google Analytics and you go into location and filters, you can figure out that information and get a better idea if you're getting enough traffic to your site from your actual service area. So that's just a way just to, before you even start looking at, what if I change the color on my site to this or that, or what if I add this, or try to go through these basic questions before you really even do anything, so that you can really make a list based off of a plan that you're making.
Donato, can I ask a question about the Google Analytics?
Yeah.
Is there a place, like, for me, I don't really fully understand Google Analytics. I get the concept, but really understanding it, do you have any kind of references of where people can try to get some information on how to understand it?
Yeah. So the best thing to do would be, there's a Google Analytics Academy. That's a free course that Google has.
Okay.
And that probably would be the best, most organized place to go.
Okay.
Because other than that, there's just a bunch of, like, if you Google that for that, you'll get a ton of articles. And then
Okay.
you're trying to figure out which one should you even reference. So probably
Right.
Google Analytics Academy is a free one, and would give a good overview. Otherwise, I learned a lot about what I do through just different blogs and YouTube
Okay.
videos and stuff. Yep. So
Okay,
that
great.
a lot of people don't know Google has those on there, though, so they're definitely worth taking advantage of. They have Google
Yeah.
Analytics, they have Google Ads Academy, so there's some different ones that you can do that are free that Google provides.
Great. Thank you.
All right. So I spent a lot of time on this presentation because the homepage is one of the most one of the first pages you're going to want to edit typically if you're whether you're designing a new site or if you're just trying to improve your existing site. And after you go through your plan and your mission and what you want from your site, the homepage is probably where you're going to look next. Typically, because a lot of small businesses and nonprofits, well over 50% of your overall page views for the most part are going to be to the homepage. So that's where you're starting to think ahead of, like, okay, knowing that we really need to make a great impression on the first page. And after we make that great impression, we need to make it very easy for that person to find what's next. Where do they need to go next? That's going to be relevant to them. All right. So what I like to do when I think about that, thinking about the mission and the plan and where we're trying to guide people, is to start off before you do any design, thinking about pictures and anything like that, is to just create a checklist. And on that checklist, you'll start thinking about what makes you different. What is the thing that you're going to say to that person visiting your website that clearly explains what's different about you and your company and what you can do better than the others? And partly when you're doing that, try to think about how you can say something or make a statement about something that doesn't sound exactly like all your competitors. So that's going to involve some kind of competitive research. Also something that hopefully you can back up with some credibility, which I have on this list. What actions are we driving towards? So that's back to the call to action. That's, what do we want them to do? Is it book a call? Is it get a free consultation? Is it buy something? Just start thinking about what that primary action is, because we usually do want to have that, you call it above the fold on websites, where it's without scrolling, can they easily see the action that we're trying to drive them towards? Because some people might just go towards that, and we want to give them the opportunity to. If you can have some information on the homepage about how you do it, that is good. So what makes you different and how you do it. That might also be what services you offer. So if you're like a contractor and you're like, we make the most amazing living homes ever, then you might have below that, architecture services, design, kind of some blocks of how you accomplish that solution. If you can show credibility, sometimes it's absolutely essential if you're in an industry you're working with highly regulated clients or customers. You want to show that you're certified and you're, held to a certain standard. But even if not, even if you're just a general any company, if you have online reviews or if you have awards that you've won, if you've been mentioned in press releases, anything you can do to show credibility, that's kind of just, proof from outside sources that are showing that you do what you say you do and you do it well. You do want to start thinking about if you have something like that you can display on your website. And can you have an area on the homepage that shows you're active? Maybe you're going to be committing to a blog once a month, or a blog or something like that, or specials, anything you can feed onto the homepage that is updating consistently, so that when you get that repeat traffic, it's showing a little bit of different information. I figured to take this time to talk a little bit about some example homepages that show what I'm talking about. This is my homepage. We just redid our site at the last year in the fall. So what I have is looking for a web partner. So I chose that as my message because a lot nowadays, most organizations want to find a vendor that is going to work with them even after their website's done on either hosting or digital marketing services. So that's why I chose that as my headline. I kept it very focused on that. I have next steps kind of call to action. We can schedule a call or send a message. And I know based on what I've looked at from a lot of my analytics, most people want to just go and see my work or read my reviews. So that's why I have those two buttons right there. So it's kind of giving them an easy entry into those two most common areas it seems like people are trying to get to. And then under there, I say how we do it, what we offer, web design, hosting, lead generation services through digital marketing. And then I have a little more information about us, and then also some logos. And this is almost like you call it borrowed credibility. So these are our tools that we use. But by showing some of these recognizable logos, we're also getting a little bit of borrowed credibility from the brand, just strength of these logos as well. We have a little featured work feed, Great Lynn Chamber of Commerce, of course, going to feature them. And then we have some more proof here from some of our testimonials that, and here's Christine's, that one's on there. And then a few testimonials highlighting what we've done. We have our blog, which we keep semi up to date on a monthly basis, and then the forum, and then you're in the bottom. So that's one example homepage. I'm trying to get through these fast. This was another that was for a data classification company. So their homepage, they're really trying to drive people towards the demo. So that's what that is for. So transform data from burn into an asset. And then as you scroll down, they get into the credibility even quicker. They show some of their client logos right off the start. Then they get into their solutions. And now they have kind of the more so of the how about the platform and what it does. So you can kind of toggle between the tabs of how they do it. And then here's what they integrate with, since they're an enterprise level software. So it's very important to be able to integrate with different apps and integrations. And let's see, we have the 360 insights. So that is there. And then we have finished the page with the call to action. So that was that one. And then let's show one. I didn't realize that it did 2 attorney sites. So I'll show one of them. This one's hot off presses. We just put this website up online this week. So this is a estate planner, and he's going much more for the family style photos on the front, rotating through with the navigation at the top. His call to action is to schedule online or call. And then when you scroll down, it says, gets into why he does what he does. He was an attorney that personally went through a family member having health issues and managing them through the process, and that he built a passion for that and chose to focus on estate planning for his thing. And he also, this is a really good area that not many people are able to do, but he has free workshops twice a month. So that's where we talked about having something on your website that shows that you're current or active. And this is a great way to do that, so that people can sign up for his free workshops. Then it shows how he does it, all those different services that he offers related to like elder law. Shows his testimonials, some credibility, and then a nice easy way to request a consultation. Those are some quick examples of home pages. Since we talked about the checklist, what might you start thinking ahead to of what you're going to do on your own new homepage? Another thing that's really easy to add to existing websites are just different lead captures, and I'll show you some of those examples. One of them is a pop-up. A lot of people loathe pop-ups. They can't stand pop-ups, but at the end of the day, they work pretty well. So if you're trying to get more leads and more conversion from your website, the pop-ups can be a great way to do it. In this case, this one's tied actually to an automated email sequence now. It was tied to a white paper, but now it's basically just ask the person to enter their name and email address, and they'll get access to the 6 reasons why you should choose a bankruptcy attorney. And it's just a way to add on to the website where it's like, maybe you don't want to schedule an appointment yet, maybe you're not quite there, but here's a free resource that's going to be useful to you when you're on the website. There's also a pricing teaser that you can do. So if you're and this works better if you're in an industry where showing pricing is typically not something you will do. You don't really want to hide pricing on your website if all your competitors are just showing the pricing. But in this case, this is an managed IT service provider. They're out of Newburyport. They do a great job if anybody needs IT services. And they have their call to action about managed IT. They have flat rate pricing information. And if you fill out the form, you get to see the pricing. So that's been an effective way to get more leads through your site as well. Now, this is another one. I always show this one. This is a really old website that, it's, but they have this click here for a special offer and this email address sign up. And I've always been so impressed with how many people actually take this offer. And it's been very effective for this business to get a lot more email addresses onto their email list just for a small coupon. And then at the end of the year, what he does, he does really well selling car wash gift cards around the holidays. So all those email addresses that he piles up over the course of the year, he's able to turn into a lot of gift card sales by collecting those emails. He could be using it for even more than that, but that's typically more so how he's used it in the past. And we talk about different tactics that you can do to get these lead capture ideas on there. Because what we talked about before, we talked about pricing teaser, white paper downloads, kind of like free resources. We talked about a coupon that you get. And this is actually really popular if you have like an e-commerce storefront, enter your email for 10% off your order. Now we'll talk about the different ways of displaying those lead capture ideas. Pop-ups, like we said before, work really well. This tool that we use for this client, you can actually have like 4 pop-ups and then set the percentage of how often they show up so that you'll have 4 pop-ups that show up 25% of the time. So if you get a lot of repeat traffic, which this website does because they have customers going there to place their orders, it makes it so that they're not going to see the same pop-up every time. There are different triggers for pop-ups because I know a lot of people are a little bit squeamish about pop-ups. You can make it so they show up on specific pages, and you can make it so they show up right away or after a period of time. So if you want the pop-up to wait 30 seconds and then show, you can, or 20 seconds you can. I typically prefer to make it so that the pop-ups show almost right away because I feel like that's a little less intrusive than if somebody is actually reading text after 20 seconds and they're kind of really consuming the page that you would want to show a pop-up. You can also, this is another good way because it's not as intrusive, is show the pop-up on scroll. Sometimes people just scroll pages really quickly and hardly even read anything. And then if a pop-up comes up, that could grab their attention and be like, hey, just look at this. But then again, the scrolling could interrupt somebody reading. So I still like the idea of showing the pop-up within a few seconds of the page loading if you are going to show it. And then this one works pretty well on my website, Exit Intent. Exit Intent detects when somebody's about to leave your website, and then it shows the pop-up. So that really is my favorite to use, but unfortunately it does not work on mobile. So for my website, I work with business to business. Almost 80% of my traffic is still all on desktop. So an Exit Intent is perfectly fine for me to use. But if you're a restaurant or some other kind of business and you've checked your Google Analytics and you see that 80% of your traffic is from a phone, then you're not really going to get the benefit of the pop-ups. And that's where you would have to look at having that pop-up show after a period of time. And since I mentioned restaurants and places like that, even if you're like a storefront, the pop-ups on the homepage for a newsletter, I don't know what it is about restaurants and places like that. I guess I do, because you think you're going to get good, coupons or good information, but I do see that those have a very high rate of signups on the newsletter. So you definitely want to collect as much information as possible. And it seems like people that like a certain store or restaurant are a lot more likely to engage in one of those pop-ups by default. So that's just a quick observation that I've had over the years. All right, so another tactic aside from top bar is a pop-up is a top bar. And actually you could see that on my website where it's just this bar. And the reason you can see why this would be an effective way to effective, easy thing to add to an existing site without having to change anything is it really just pretty much pushes your whole website down and shows a bar with a call to action. So this is showing one of our recent webinars about Google Business and how to use it to increase SEO. So the top bars work pretty well for displaying a call to action on the page that gets some attention. Slide in. So this is a good compromise, and they work really well for companies that don't want to really do a pop-up or have a pop-up but want to have another lead capture on their site. And this is just a little box that, almost like a live chat widget, kind of slides up from the bottom right, and then somebody can engage with it and enter their name and email. So those work pretty well too. Pop-ups, top bars, and slide-ins all seem to work a lot better than the traditional method of saying, like, let's just join our newsletter, in the footer or the sidebar of the website. Those almost get zero interaction. So I definitely recommend one of these tactics aside from that. One thing I didn't have on this presentation, but a lot of companies are getting more comfortable with adding are live chat widgets. And if you're in a position where you can have a live chat widget, and you're particularly, it seems like, in a business to consumer type of a company, they work very well. And there are certain kinds of live chats that you can sign up for that are more like leave a message style. So you don't have to constantly be sitting there available. You can make it so that when somebody starts a live chat, if you don't respond within 10 seconds or 15 seconds, it'll say, why wait? Leave your email address and your contact information. We'll get back to you. And I have noticed a surprising amount of people do engage with those, and and they do work pretty well. I think it was an acupuncturist that I helped set that up for, and you would think that if there wasn't that there, people would fill out the form, but he did get a higher rate of people inquiring about his services through live chat than he was through just like his contact page. So that's definitely a nice, easy addition to any website without even changing the design.
And can I, sorry to,
yeah.
And this is another, probably, I don't know that much about technology. When you say live chat, is that like a computer system that would be doing it, or would it actually be someone?
Either one.
Okay.
Yeah, you could do either one. So that they have the bots that you could do too. Mm-hmm. But this one would make it so that the one that we use makes it so that when somebody starts a live chat, it would ping an app on your phone, and then you can start chatting with the person. But if you don't respond, then it would be like, leave your contact information and we'll get back to you. And
oh, okay.
Surprisingly, a lot of people will do that because they feel like they started the chat, so they might as well leave their info.
Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the example if I could do it. Let's see. Oh, I know which one I can do. This one's been working well for this chimney company too that we work with. So you can see here, you have the, let us know if you have any questions. We're happy to help. And if you click on that, kind of pops up the live chat.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I say chat, and then let's see if it. So it says, "Don't have time to leave response. Leave your message," and then you will end up chatting. But it's just it definitely is a good way. Yeah, and it's been working really well for the couple of people we've added it for.
Awesome.
This is the acupuncturist that we did it with. So it shows his picture. Thanks for stopping by, and that's the same thing. And he even personalized it a little bit more, where it has his picture and so that's an nice easy addition.
Cool.
And that's through HubSpot, and it's free, so that's it's kind of nice.
Cool.
Maybe the Greater Lynn Chamber will get that at some point.
So I don't make those decisions.
Getting into some design tips, talking about fonts. This is another thing that we've seen. It's such an easy thing to do on a lot of different websites. Just, if you go on a lot of old and outdated websites. Most of the time it's the font on the site is too small. It's like 10 point, and it's like a light gray against a white background. And just by making the font size bigger and the body and the font darker, it's like the site's instantly more usable. So I always take a look at that. A lot of people are recommending that the body font should be at least 16 pixels minimum. And it kind of depends on the font your website's using, because like sometimes 16 of one font can look large for one and then smaller for another. So you can do a little bit of the eyeball test when you're looking at it. If 16 looks just huge, then you can go a little less. But around 16, start with 16, and if it looks way too big, bump it down to 15 or so. But you want the text on your website to be easily readable. Use web-friendly fonts. Avoid scripty fonts. Sometimes you can get away with the script fonts and the headings, but even still, they're harder to read. Contrast is very important. If you have a website that has a dark background, you want to make sure you have a light enough color on the text that it's readable. Or what happens on a lot of like do-it-yourself websites, if you're putting text against an image, you want to make sure that there's enough contrast. So you might have to make the text a little more bold, or you want to just make sure that there's enough contrast so that the text isn't getting washed out. People have a hard time reading all caps. So throughout the website, you want to try to avoid using all caps as much as you can. You see a lot of websites will have all caps in their page titles or their blog post titles. But if you're noticing that, your blog titles are like almost a full sentence, which happens sometimes, and you're going to continue having long blog titles, or if you do a website that has a lot of events, you want to avoid having all caps, because those can get hard to read. And then also use headers throughout the page. So that's another like easy usability thing that you can do. So if you had a page in your website that has like 5 paragraphs of text, just simply going in and adding a header in between each of those paragraphs of text will help make the page more scannable. It'll help for search engines too, but if just using those headers will make it so that somebody can easily scan your page and actually know what the page is all about without having to read every single little bit of text on the whole page. And if they read the heading and they see that paragraph 3 is really the information they care about, then they just read that paragraph. So that's an effective way to go too. This is one that I've been paying more attention to on our own designs, because it just makes a lot of sense and it does make the pages look better. But it's kind of the structure. It's called measure. So you can see, if you ever looked at a newspaper, you see how it's all in like small, tight columns. And it's really mostly because our eyes can read through text when the lines are shorter. So if you have you see this in a lot of like Squarespace websites, or any websites in general, where you get text going from completely one side of the screen all the way to the other. And they look okay on the phone because the phone's so thin anyway. But on the desk, if you're, for your desktop traffic, if you have that text going all the way from left to right, people's eyes will get tired and they're not going to really read through your text if it's just way too long, kind of like this is one, and then too short. You don't want to go completely the other way and have it be too short. This is an example of a before and after. It's a site I was talking about before and it comes down to contrast. So you can see this text on this site, it was like a gray background with like kind of like a faint font text, and it was very hard to read the text. And then we changed it so that it's a white background with dark text, and it just became a lot more readable and easy to actually go through. Consistency is another important thing when you're designing a site. You want to try to keep your colors consistent with your logo. You can have some accent colors, but try to have things somewhat, all within the same color palette. Looking at this 5 points acupuncture now, I can see he did a good job with that. I think this was a site that he did either on his own or with somebody, but you can see he kind of used little bits and colors out of his logo throughout. You have the green and the blues, and then, there aren't a lot of just random colors jumping all over the place on his site. And don't use too many fonts or font sizes. That's another thing that's a pet peeve for a lot of people. Try to stay consistent with the fonts and also the sizing. use headings when you're going to do a bigger size and actually have it be a heading. And the fonts that load on the page, we're actually seeing affect page speed when it comes to Google's page speed tests. So if you want to try to limit the how many fonts are loading on a page, because it will have a positive impact on page speed. As far as photography goes, whenever you can use high quality photography, you should. You don't want to have low quality images on your website. Some industries you can use stock images and find some really good ones that work well. And then for a lot of other industries, actually having a professional photographer come and help really makes all the difference in the world with the final product on the website. This is an example of a construction company that had the professional photography, and you can see that it's an actual picture on site of one of their workers sawing wood, and then you have the team picture right here, and it just made for a different experience compared to most other builder websites. So that was one where the photography really made a difference. This is another one where they had a professional group headshot, and just made a big difference in terms of the landing page of who you're dealing with. And this is a law firm where they represent clients for that have been legal malpractice. So it's a little bit more on like the friendly / serious side, so that they're able to get the right photo that they wanted to display there. And this is a company that does custom homes. All their homes are really high end. So this is where you can see they definitely made sense for them to invest in the professional photography for their throughout the site. Another thing to look for to see if do you need a new website? Does your site look a little dated? Most modern sites are full width layout versus boxed. And what we mean by that is you don't see too many sites nowadays. We have like these margin, we call them kind of like wallpaper on the left and right. They're more so full width like this. So this was a new site where it's a kind of a full width image. It has a navigation and the phone number and the social media. And then you can kind of see just the difference between, old, new, kind of between the two styles. Lately, I don't know what has happened, but it's definitely become the standard. Your website has to be mobile responsive and work well on a small phone device. It seems like most sites are at least mobile responsive where they kind of work on a phone, but they could be better. But I have had a few people inquire recently where I checked out their old sites and they weren't even mobile responsive. Even if you're not getting a lot of traffic on mobile, even if you're only getting 30% of your traffic is on mobile, you still want that traffic still counts. I've definitely noticed that a lot of my traffic, my repeat traffic is usually on mobile, because somebody will look into us when they're at the office. And then once they're ready to actually potentially contact us to schedule an appointment, they're looking us up again on the phone and checking out one last time and then calling. So definitely keep making sure your website works well on the phone is important. And it's also important for search engine rankings. If you can't make your website responsive and you don't want to do a rebuild, this doodah.co is a good band-aid to hold you over in the meantime. And it's kind of an interesting website where you can put in the URL for your website and it'll actually make a mobile version of your site. And then what it will do is make an M.dot version of your site. You see that it's definitely a band-aid. You hardly ever see that nowadays. And it's more of a pain in the butt because if you update your main website, it might not always update on the mobile site. So going with the mobile responsive site is definitely the better, in the long run, the better route. I just want to go through and cover a little bit on how you can make your website easier to use. Being predictable is the biggest thing for having an easy to use website. Your logo should always be linked to your home page. The page name should be simple. If you have a home tab, just call it home. A lot of the sites we've been doing lately, we haven't even been including a home tab, just because a lot of people do know just to click on the logo. But depending on your audience, and if you think you have an audience that is not as tech savvy, you'll want to keep home in the menu. But for a lot of what I'm doing, we haven't been doing that. Calling your services is another easy way to be easy and predictable. Instead of calling it like what we do or what we're passionate about, or things like that. I think just calling it straight services, and that'll help people who are trained to look for that link in the navigation menu. Same thing with about, instead of, as opposed to like meet us or who we are, just keeping it simple and calling it about is also easier. And then having a contact page and always having it be the last link in the menu is very important, because that's where people are trained to look for it. Also making yourself easy to contact, having the phone number, and if you think it's necessary, the email address on the top of every page is important. If you're active on social media, you can include it on the top and bottom. But for the most part, we do put it on the bottom of the website. Usually social media drives people to the website, not the other way around. So the social media typically isn't always as important to have at the top. But if you're trying to build up your following and get more people driven to it, then it certainly couldn't hurt. It's just a matter of whether you want to use that real estate for that purpose or not. In terms of having an email at the top of the site, what a lot of people are starting to do now is just put a button at the top. So you have the phone number and a button, and the button would link to a form that the people can fill out to send an email. And that can tend to be the preferred method, because then you'll get the information you want from that first contact, whereas who knows what they're going to email you if they just shoot an email. All right, so this was the header. This was my header before we redid our website. You can see we had the logo, the social media, the phone number, and then a bunch of links that we needed to clean up. And then this was it after. So we got much more simplified. We have the logo, nav in the middle, phone number, and then that button like we talked about, or we didn't even have a button like that before. So that was a good addition. Here's another sample. This was a pretty complicated header for the Greater Lynn Chamber. We had a lot to fit in the top of that area, but we were able to do it in a pretty organized way. We have the social media in the top right, the quick links, become a member, how to post the local deal. If you haven't done that yet on the Greater Lynn Chamber site, that's a great feature to get your deals out there. Language switcher, search, phone number, address, and then your primary navigation. This was another one. We did a similar layout as the Greater Lynn Chamber, as a health center in Dorchester. So you can see how they also had a lot of links to work with. And then you start thinking about how these headers are going to work on mobile. That's also important. So this is how we did you want to make sure the phone number is clickable. And in this case, the address was important too, and the language switcher. And then once it's expanded, you have those two call to action buttons within the hamburger menu instead of in the standard template on mobile. Footers are also very important for just making your site easy to use. A lot of people will just scroll to the bottom of the site, and then they like to use this little, it's basically like a tree of the links they can get to throughout the site. So having an effective footer is important for that, and repeating the contact information. And just going to run through some best practices. Search engine optimization, just making sure you submit your website to Google and Bing. Claim your Google and Bing pages online, update them as much as you can. When you launch a new website, or even if you have an existing website, if any of the URLs are going to change on your site, you want to make sure you forward those old URLs to the new. Otherwise, you're going to have 404 errors, which are very bad for search engine rankings. As far as optimizing pages on your website, you want to just make sure you have SEO-friendly URLs. You want to start with a keyword. You want to have any modifiers to your title, add images, headings within the page, use the keyword. So these are all nice tips that you have. If you use WordPress, there's a plugin called Yoast, which gives you good tips of like how to optimize your pages better for SEO. In terms of local SEO though, this is the biggest thing I push, is really going and focusing on your map page. And that will make the biggest difference for you in terms of a local SEO standpoint. And the best way to do that is to request reviews from your customers and clients. And that's pretty easy to do in an email. So that's how I was able to build up my reviews and get a better ranking for our page. So if I search like design, or do compete now, web design. And then the way that I did it was, you go and you find your map page here, and then you click to write a review. And then you really can just take this link and put it through a link shortener like tinyurl or bit.ly. bit.ly, however you would call it, and you email that link to whoever you can and build up those reviews, because that's going to make the biggest difference local SEO standpoint. The other thing to keep in mind is page speed optimization. So when you're uploading pictures to your website, make sure you're running them through a website like tinypng.com. Also making sure you're using some kind of plugin or a solution for page speed caching. Page speed caching just means that it's pretty much storing a version of the page that can just load faster for the browsers when they first go to your site, and it makes a big difference. And you can get a lot of good tips from things you can do to your page speed on GTmetrix to improve it as well. And that just, you put in URL and actually run a test. And that gives you some good tips of what's affecting your page speed. And it's important for SEO rankings. It's one of their factors. It's not like I don't think it's gonna necessarily make or break SEO completely, but I have read that it's a tiebreaker. So if you and 7 other sites are ranking for the same keyword and your site's the slowest, you'll be the last on the list versus the first. So that could be partly what could affect your overall ranking. Aside from just, and this is for scoring because it's also perceived loading. If your site, it's definitely even more urgent if you go to your website and you're clicking through the pages and it just feels slow, because you can have a website that's fast that doesn't do well on page speed scores, and then the page speed scores just becomes like an ongoing thing you want to improve. But if your site literally is slow, that's going to have a huge impact on what you're getting out of your website. So just wanted to highlight that there are kind of like 2 buckets of page speed. There's running it through tools like GTmetrix and Google PageSpeed Insights, which is important for SEO. And then there's the side of page speed that is your site actually feel slow or seem slow to your users. Because if that's the case, that's going to affect not only your ranking, that's going to affect your overall leads and business that you're going to get from your site. Just a couple notes on tracking. Google Analytics should be on every website so you can see the stats and the breakdown. And the other one that's an optional, but I like to use, is Lucky Orange. And Lucky Orange actually does recorded sessions, so you can see what people are doing on your website on an individual basis. And then it also creates an accumulative view of what people are doing on your site on each page that you want to look at. What are they clicking on? Where are they hovering? How far down the page are they scrolling? So that's a good way to know that if you have these really long pages and something pretty important is in a part of the page that only 40% of the people are scrolling to, Lucky Orange can help you get those insights. All right, so I kind of went through a little bit quicker at the end there. We spent a lot of time on the earlier slides, but those are the more important ones for the most part anyway. I kind of just threw in some of the tracking things at the end, but if there's any questions, we did have some people end up joining over the course of it that might not have saw.
Yeah, and we are recording it, so if we'll be putting that on our YouTube page and probably via social media in the next couple days. But if anybody has any questions, yeah, this is a good time. We have a few more minutes if anybody would like to ask any questions. I always ask my questions throughout. Oh, I just saw this come up. Any advice on website builders?
What kind of website? Is it maybe is it like a e-commerce, or I might be able to?
So that was Emmanuel.
Yes,
and I know that she's an. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, just trying to think. I just want to redo my site, and there's so many out there, Wix and Squarespace, and just, do you have a preference or something's better?
Yeah, what do you do?
I'm a graphic designer, but the website that I'm doing is more for my fine art. So I'm a watercolor artist, and so I just wanted to redo it. And also, my husband is a recording artist, and his website needs to be redone. And I have a lot of work on my plate at the moment.
Yeah. So for do it yourself, I think if you're a graphic designer, you should look into Webflow.
Webflow, okay. Because
That's a
I
little-
use Dreamweaver and I'm done with it.
No, don't do that.
I'm done.
No, I
So
think
Webflow.
yeah. So if you were a normal user, I would say Squarespace. But if you're
Okay.
a graphic designer, I think you'll really like Webflow. I
Okay.
haven't used it myself yet, but it's pretty much a way for a graphic designer to build a website without having to do any coding or anything. So
Yes.
I think that I think it's a tiny bit more expensive than Squarespace. So you could look into both, but I've heard great things about Webflow.
Okay, I will look. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? I don't see any other ones.
This is just no questions. This has just been really great information. So
Oh, great.
Oh, good.
Yeah, really good.
Glad.
And a little intimidating, but that's okay.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. I tried to put a bunch of tips in, and then if you pick a few to go with, and that's a good start. Definitely for small business, I've been definitely building up the Google reviews has definitely been that made the biggest difference for me in terms of, you know, I started getting a lot of calls locally that I wasn't getting before once I fixed that up.
Great.
A lot of time and energy into your website, social media, all that stuff, but it pays off.
Yeah.
It does.
Mhm.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Again, this is recorded, so we'll put it out, and Donato, I'll be touching base with you this week to let you know what's up, and so then if you
Yeah,
want
I'll
to
share
share that too. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Would you mind just sending the host back to me?
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Where's your name? This one. There we go.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope everybody enjoys your day, and I heard there's snow coming, so stay warm.
Yeah. Thank
Enough
you.
already.
I know.
Oh, the snow. I didn't know.
I know. Yeah. Like, it's just, I think, a very small, like 2 to 3 inches, but ugh.
Oh,
I was
man.
ready for spring.
Yeah.
Ready for spring. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.